It's a great honor and pleasure to be here and talk about something that is very near and dear to my heart, which is bringing longevity medicine, the clinical practice, not only for the healthy individuals, but also for those who are sick, currently sick, and immerse longevity medicine in the sick care. And the point that I will be trying to make is that we really need a reciprocal path or a highway, very German here, really good Autobahn between healthy longevity and the sick care. And this is for me then the whole picture. We very often talk about longevity for all, and with this we mean accessibility, we mean scalability, we mean financial support for those who cannot afford it. We also mean diversity, ethnicity, and so on. But I think it's also very important to mention that we are working vertically, as I heard today morning from Professor Kirkland. We work vertically, and we also include those who are sick at this point. And very often I hear this also from my patients. I'm an oncologist and internal medicine specialist. So the cancer patients are asking me, we hear so much talking about longevity medicine and improving the health span and the function and, you know, your intrinsic function and performance. What can we do? Are we excluded? And the answer is definitely no. So I would just like to mention first the definition. Again, the definitions were born, and now even the efforts of rebranding are ongoing, but still in the very beginning, 2020, here at the ARDD, the first framework of definition was presented by Dr. Kai-Fu Lee, and he mentioned that longevity medicine is a branch of precision medicine driven by AI tools and is focusing on health span and lifespan. We developed this a little more with the healthy longevity medicine in 2022, saying that healthy longevity medicine is rather about optimizing health span along the lifespan by targeting age-related processes. And how do we do that? So for those of you who practice or are patients, you know that we are trying to bring you from your chronological age and define the biological age, the optimal biological age, and bring you there. So we are trying to work by the optimal ranges rather than the normal ranges. That's what we do. You all know that already from the past. We use for that a lot of data, and data are crucial for what we do, and that's something that I want to focus on. Because the second part of the point I want to make here is that without AI, and partially also Metaverse, we probably cannot get where we want in terms of clinical practice. So continuous monitoring and basically mapping a digital twin. That term is also a little bit overhyped, but in general, for us doctors, it is a great opportunity to actually simulate therapies and diagnostics rather on a digital twin, on a very, very good digital twin, than on a human. And so we are on the way there, and for this, we also need to map the ecosystem. So, or the exposome, as some people name it. So basically also capture all the external influences that are around us, those that influence epigenetics and those that potentially do that, and so on. But basically we need something that captures the inside and the outside. And only then we can get to the point that we can have a granular longevity protocol for an individual patient or a group. But this comes also with another point that you all have heard so many times. We are trying to close the gap between the lifespan and the health span. We are trying to make people living healthy longer and not only longer. And that's all correct, and it's very important. But we also need to remember that we have this part about decreasing quality of life as the health span is getting down along the lifespan. And the last point that is maybe not so pronounced very often is that we also have to look vertically, where is the threshold of a specific individual in terms of their health span. So we are not aiming for the same level of health span for everybody. So that also has to be individualized. And this brings us into the 3D component. So this looks a little bit like the roads in Shanghai, but actually this is something that demonstrates how we are working in terms of bringing the sick care and the longevity medicine together. And that only works if we are, in my opinion, if we are on the same campus, if we're in the same place, if we, doctors, talk to each other and healthcare professionals, those who work in the silos of the sick care, and those who are trying to also bring longevity medicine and transpass all of those disciplines. This is an example of my hospital, and I chose China to demonstrate the tools and the need. So of course in China the sizes are a little bit different, and this is my hospital with 17 campuses across 5 provinces, and we have about 25 million people per year that we see. So clearly we also want to accommodate people from other provinces that are coming to us, and those are about 50 million people. Clearly not everybody can have the access. There was a time for us that we have people coming from the provinces getting all of their money into getting to Shanghai, getting treated and going away. And very often the doctor had to say, well, I have nothing for you, or in a palliative setting. So they got very upset, right? And what we needed to develop is something much better than just telemedicine. That's something that we had like 20 years ago. Now we need to have really an upgrade, to have an immersion of the patient in the metaverse. And this is something that has been built, that has been applied and is working already for the past few years. And one might say that's not so impressive. So, okay, so you have this gamification, you have the virtual reality, you have the patient sitting in front of the doctor and seeing the doctor and the doctor seeing the patient in real time. What's actually very impressive is what is behind. So the data lake behind is the real power. So every single time that the patient goes into the metaverse, we are capturing everything that the patient is doing, from movement, from voice, from gait, from all the conversations, of course, that are being taken with the patient, on top of all the paperwork, EHR, everything that we have already. So we are really mapping every single time, every single patient, and this gives us also the chance to do it longitudinally. The patient does not have to always come and be there. And that's just an example of something that we just call a prototype, but basically that's what we are doing right now. So those are not AI-generated pictures, I was asked to say that. That's the real videos from our hospital where we have our ICU, and you know how many data are produced in the ICU every single hour, and we are capturing that as well. But also what's important, you know, if we are trying to make recommendations and guidelines for a new field, we also need to capture all of the experts' opinions and what they say, and the discussions, debates, maybe even fights. And this is something that we do also in the metaverse, capturing all the conversations when we are having events and so on. And of course, surgical part, I will not go into that, but we are learning a great deal on how we can actually improve our triage. So how can we stratify the patients and say, those are high-risk patients, those are low-risk patients, which kind of procedure can we do? Really implementing like a KPI for a patient. How much risk do you want to take? And that's so important for longevity. And at the same time, a lot of partners are working with us, and most of those partners here are large insurance companies and large technology companies and pharma and AI. And what's important is that they are slowly also learning our narrative, what we are doing here and talking here. And this gives a little bit of exposure, but also real-time application. And this is what makes them passionate also to move into the field of longevity, and they are helping us to build up this smart platform for longevity, where all of the patients of the hospital, outpatient, inpatients, but also slowly the residential parts of Shanghai and outside will be captured in this kind of a cloud hospital, including Metaverse hospital. So longitudinal setting with a lot of data. Now, getting into a higher level requires, of course, somewhere a starting point. And being at the ARDD, I have to present some science. So I'm going to move to that point now. In China, aging problem as of last year, aging is a big problem because we actually got to the peak of the curve. China is officially an aging population. We have more aged people above 60 than those beyond. One thing that our hospital has been pioneering is a longitudinal real-world longevity cohort. So we have a cohort since 2019 of healthy individuals that are being screened all over China. We have several provinces working with us. The expected enrollment of individuals should be about something more like 550,000 or more, because more provinces are joining. and our vice president, Professor Pu, is leading the effort. We have a cohort that is a subgroup, Shanghai Healthy Longevity Cohort, and we are collecting as much as we can, of course, building also a biobank with blood, urine, feces, hair, and other samples, and collecting data from biochemistry to cognitive testing, MRIs, imaging, but also for at least subpopulations, we are getting quite good omics data. And what have we learned from that cohort? There are already several papers. Of course, this is a clinicaltrials.gov registered cohort and trials undergoing that. But few of the things that are maybe practical and just really demonstrating the point, what has longevity to do with sick care and how can we apply things vice versa. So one of the things we learned from that healthy longevity cohort is actually how can we better manage the fact that heart attacks are occurring in the morning. So we know that most of our patients who are coming with a sudden cardiac arrest, and this is mostly caused by myocardial infarction. Sorry, I don't know how to stop this automatic thing. So most of the people who are coming to us, they are appearing in the morning. And this is something that we knew for decades. This is nothing new to us, but we didn't really know why. So what we have seen, at least in this healthy cohort, is that the peak comes around 9 a.m. That's something that we definitely seen. And of course, intuitively, we knew that it has something to do with circadian rhythm. And also we've seen through the imaging that we are doing that the aggregation of platelets is also focusing around that time of 9 a.m. We have seen that in our patients, and it was the same for patients who are real world, but also patients who are already on beta blockers and calcium antagonists. And we have also seen that the activations of the platelets can somebody help me to stop this automatic PowerPoint presentation, please? It doesn't work. Okay, this is not good for somebody who is talking about technology to not to know this, right? Okay, so but it doesn't work. Okay, so I'm gonna try to hurry up. So activations of the platelets is also happening in the morning, and one of the markers that we've seen in the blood is the marker that you can see here. It's called REF-ERB alpha. For those who know, it's one of the regulators of the circadian rhythm. And it's a negative one, so he's actually negatively impacting our circadian rhythm, and it is also working on our thrombocytes. This we somehow knew through correlations, but it was never really shown in the mechanisms of action. So what we have seen here, we have checked the expression of REF-ERB alpha in human thrombocytes, and we've seen that it is actually expressed. And we have also seen that the expression is time sensitive. So we have seen that the expression of thrombocytes is actually peaking at 9 a.m. rather than later on. And also, we have seen this in STEMI patients. So both in healthy patients and in those who had heart attack, the same mechanisms. This specific marker was activated more in the morning. What we have done, we have taken a mice, and I have heard somebody from outside of the field who said, I have seen so many mice this week. I don't want to see mice anymore. I'm going to show a mice, and then I'm going to show a sheep. So in the mice, we've seen that when we delete REF-ERB alpha, we actually see that the aggregation of the platelets is going down, and also, of course, based on that, the bleeding time is being prolonged. So less aggregation of thrombocytes, less myocardial infarction, and also the microvascular microthrombi obstruction is getting lower. So the arteries are clotting less. So that was good. We've seen that. And we are trying now also to somehow generate a drug that will be an inhibitor of this compound for humans. So you can look it up in our publication, or several publications that were there. So learning from the healthy cohort together with the sicker cohort, we were able to provide the evidence for the first time that this compound is being expressed in the thrombocytes and has a direct influence on the peak of myocardial infarction in the morning. Second interesting part was shift work. So for those who work in shifts or don't sleep, like me, it's important. So we have an association between shift work and short-term reperfusion of myocardial infarction. What does it mean? It seems that people who have shift work and undergo myocardial infarction, they actually are at risk to reperfuse myocardium later on. Of course, this leads to much more complications, and later on it also leads to an increased amount of myocardial acute events, so problems that occur after the heart attack and lead sometimes also to sudden death. And we've seen in that cohort that actually a lot of people who are in the shift work, in any type of a shift work, they are at a higher risk of MACE in the next year. We've put poor mice also into this kind of a stress. We've simulated a kind of a circadian rhythm disruption in the mice, and we have checked if also their reperfusion is getting worse, and indeed we have seen that. Sorry for the slides, I don't know what's happening here. And we've seen that indeed those mice that were under shift work stress, they had a worse reperfusion later on. After the mice, we checked that on the sheep, so that's the sheep I promised. And the sheep also, under the stress of the shift work, had a much later reperfusion and a higher amount of risk of myocardial infarction. And later on, we also checked the mechanism of action, what could be actually the receptor or the compound that we can use as a biomarker, and we have identified a marker called NRI-DI, actually that's associated with a gene in chromosome 17. It was a known one. It's also connected to REF-BEP alpha, but it was for the first time that we actually showed that NR1-D1 is associated with shift work-induced stress or just circadian rhythm disruption stress and myocardial reperfusion. And so in a cohort then of 706 patients enrolled in that cohort who underwent STEMI, so had a myocardial infarction, we've seen this expression being increased. Last but not least, I would just like to mention one work that the group is doing under the leadership of Professor Chen. We are working on an aging clock based on immune system, and this immune aging clock has this very athletic ambition to measure continuously the changes in the immune setting of the patients. This is being done through a workflow of several ongoing screening. So we will have single-cell RNA screening. We have the CETA receptor expression. We have the FACS validation. And that's something that is currently submitted to Nature Aging. So under the second round of review, so probably you will see it soon published. But one of the things they have found is that the changes in the PBMC subtypes are dynamic, and the clusters interactions between themselves are also dynamic, which probably shows us that checking immune aging ongoingly is as important as checking epigenetic age ongoingly, because the oscillation might be very strong within the same day. And hopefully we will also develop a tool for clinicians, so something that is applicable for me. I can have a single-cell immune age calculator, and as single-cell analysis is going down the costs, we can probably apply that. And last but not least, work that is being done in collaboration with our University of Jiaotong. We are trying to apply now in humans our in vivo tracking of peripheral nerve restoration based on live imaging. And we are now applying this technique or this technology to actually see how the therapeutics that we are applying to restore the peripheral nerve are dynamically and real-time working on the nerve. And interestingly, for longevity, those therapeutics are stem cells, so fat-derived stem cells, and also exosomes. In mice, 100% in mice, not in humans yet. But imagine how important it will be to have actually a visualization of the stem cells and exosomes real-time in the body, and to see what they are actually doing in terms of restorative therapeutics. With this, I would like to thank you very much and see you next year.
Very interesting what you are doing there. Maybe we have time for a quick question.
Hi, fantastic talk. I was just wondering, how good are you at estimating risk in patients? Because that could signify the end of insurance companies. Thank you.
That's such a great question, actually, and that's something that we are trying to use as an incentive for the healthcare system in general, not only for the insurance companies, right? So we can definitely show efficacy in some of the specialties in cancer patients. I didn't show data from our department, but this is actually where you can see the difference. Based on a lot of the diagnostics that we are doing, biological aging clock and also the functional testing, partially also NLP, so natural language processing, we can stratify the risk for several subgroups in terms of how toxic will be the therapy for them, right? So rather than going into a severe chemo and knowing that the patient will cost us much more in the chronic care setting, we will then apply for a very expensive immunotherapy that will actually potentially not prolong life so much, because I'm dealing mostly with pancreatic cancer, but will definitely allow for some improved quality of life and much less cost for the system. Thank you so much. Thank you.